Last month, I got a job as a delivery driver for a local courier service. It was supposed to be an easy gig, just driving around and dropping off packages. But one night, I had an experience that still haunts me. It was a rainy evening and I had just one last delivery to make. The address was on the outskirts of town, in a secluded area I had never been to before. I punched the address into my GPS and it led me down a long, winding road surrounded by dense woods. The rain was coming down hard and the visibility was terrible. I finally arrived at the house. It was an old two-story building that looked like it had been abandoned for years. The windows were dark and the front yard was overgrown with weeds. I checked the address again, thinking there must be some mistake, but it matched the one on the package. I grabbed the package and walked up to the front door. There was no doorbell, so I knocked. The sound echoed through the empty house. I waited for a few minutes, but no one answered. I was about to leave the package on the doorstep when I heard a faint voice from inside. "Come in," it said. I hesitated. Every instinct told me to turn around and leave, but I needed this job, so I reluctantly pushed the door open. It creaked loudly as it swung inward. I stepped into a dimly lit hallway. The air was cold and damp, and the place smelled musty, like it had been closed up for a long time. "Hello," I called out. "I have a package for you." There was no response. I took a few steps forward, peering into the shadows. The place was eerily quiet, except for the sound of rain tapping against the windows. I decided to leave the package on a table near the entrance and get out of there. As I turned to leave, I heard footsteps behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. My heart was pounding in my chest. I quickly walked back to the door, but it was shut tight. I was sure I had left it open. I tried the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in. I banged on the door, shouting for help, but the only response was the echo of my own voice. I turned back to the hallway and saw a faint light coming from a room at the end. With no other options, I decided to head towards it. The room was a small, dusty library filled with old books and cobwebs. In the corner, there was a desk with a single lit candle. The flickering light cast eerie shadows on the walls. I walked over to the desk and saw an old, leather-bound journal lying open. The pages were filled with handwritten notes and sketches. As I flipped through the journal, I realized it was a diary of sorts. The entry spoke of strange occurrences in the house, whispers in the night, and sightings of shadowy figures. The last entry was dated over 50 years ago. It described a man who had come to the house on a stormy night and was never seen again. I felt a chill run down my spine. I needed to get out of there. I grabbed the candle and hurried back to the hallway. Just as I reached the door, I heard the voice again, louder this time. "Stay with us," it whispered. I turned around and saw a figure standing at the end of the hallway. It was a man, or what used to be a man. His skin was pale and gaunt, and his eyes were hollow. He started to move towards me, slowly at first, then faster. I frantically pulled at the door, and to my relief, it finally opened. I stumbled outside into the rain and sprinted to my car. I could hear footsteps behind me, getting closer and closer. I fumbled with my keys, my hands shaking, and managed to get the door open. I jumped in, started the engine, and sped away. As I drove down the winding road, I glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure was standing in the driveway watching me leave. Its eyes seemed to glow in the darkness. I didn't stop driving until I was back in the safety of my own home. The next day, I went to work and told my boss what had happened. He looked at me with a mix of concern and disbelief. He said the house I described had been abandoned for decades. No one lived there, and no one should have been receiving packages at that address. I quit my job soon after. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me, waiting for me to return. To this day, I avoid that part of town. Whatever was in that house, it wasn't human, and it wanted me to stay with it forever.